Hello everyone, welcome to The Green Man. Hope you're all doing good and well. So tonight I'm excited to be ranking the albums of the band Evergrey, a band who I've only really properly come to know in the last few years. I did know of a couple of their older albums prior to then, but it's only in the last few years I've really come to fully appreciate their albums and their music generally. I suppose a staple of Evergrey, a defining feature is Tom England's incredible vocals and vocal power, which you could almost listen to in isolation and still enjoy without even the great music that you have to accompany that with Evergrey. But also, they have a lot of good storytelling in their albums, a lot of interesting aspects to their albums, great artwork on the album covers, right? And as a guitarist, I love their range of guitar solos and guitar work, and lots of great melody in a lot of their music too. So this was difficult because they have a consistent discography, as I say, a lot of great albums. At times, my justification for the order that I put these in this ranking was basically some tracks. I guess some albums have more tracks that I enjoy than others, or that it's just the style of Evergrey I enjoy slightly more. It was basically the margins were very fine here for this order. So this is a personal list. Do drop your own list in the comments with how you would order these Evergrey albums. I'd be interested to see those. Maybe put your top five Evergrey albums in the comments, and I look forward to seeing those. But yeah, this is a stress again. This is just my own personal list, so it doesn't have to match with your own. So yeah, I am going to start here with. So I've got 13 albums to rank here from my least favorite to my favorite. I'm going to start with my least favorite album at number 13. Without further ado, number 13 is Monday Morning Apocalypse from 2006. Now, it's still a pretty good album. I still quite enjoy this, but it is an album I'm a lot less likely to go to if I'm going to put on an Evergrey album. It sort of has it was like they were going for a slightly more commercial approach, because a lot of the songs are pretty straight up kind of hard rock songs on this album, I guess. There are some memorable choruses on here, and some pretty solid songs, but it's just one with less of the dynamics of the Evergrey I really enjoy from all their other albums in their catalogue. So Monday Morning Apocalypse comes here at bottom at number 13, but I like Lost, In Remembrance, and At Lost Words as the songs I enjoy on Monday Morning Apocalypse. So next up at 12, we have perhaps a slightly more controversial pick here. I don't know. I know this album's quite popular with Evergrey fans, so Hymns for the Broken is my number 12 choice. And I suppose, there's a lot of good songs on here, and they're really big sounding. This is, for me, the more recent Evergrey sound, where they have refined that production mixing of their albums much more. You've got just bigger sounding Evergrey. And yeah, a lot of solid songs, but there's just something for me that's not quite there. I don't know if it's in the creative process of these songs, but they just, to me, get a little samey after a while. Just interest me a bit less than I think a lot of for me, what are more exciting albums with more dynamics in that come in other, other places in their discography. So for me, Hymns for the Broken, number 12. I like my favourite tracks on here, King of Errors, Black Undertow, and the title track's a good one too. So at number 11, we have 2008's Torn. Now, this was hard for me. I like this album quite a bit, and I was like, do I really want to put this as low as 11? But compared to all the other albums I've still got to come, it had to slot in here in the end. I had to put these in an order. And you know what? One thing about this album I think that's a little distracting is the guitar sound, and the mix isn't quite, what I like it to be. I think in these kind of albums, it just like, they were obviously going for heavier guitar sound, and that is something, like I was saying with Hymns to the Broken, I think that they've refined that sound more in more recent years, I think. But in Torn, it was a little raw, and the detuned guitars I thought were a little distracting from a lot of the good stuff that was in these songs. So for me, Torn sadly comes in at number 11. Number 10, we have the first of these albums that I own on CD. This is Escape of the Phoenix from last year, with its gorgeous artwork. Just for starters, that could be if we were doing album artwork rankings for this band, this would be high up. Now with this album, I suppose this does have a lot of creative, interesting things going on it. and therefore I find this one harder to justify its low placement. But there are just fewer tracks on here that I really come back to. I like Where August Morn a lot. I like Stories. I like Eternal Nocturnal. But apart from those, I mean, maybe You From You I quite like. But apart from those, it just doesn't have as many that I really like from Evergrey. So sadly, Escape of the Phoenix from last year just comes in at number 10. At number 9, we have another recent album from 2019, this time The Atlantic, with another stunning album cover. And another big sounding album. This one had quite a slow tempo to it for the most part, I think, but some really good and more emotive, melodic guitar work that I love on The Atlantic. Lots of that chugging guitar sound for quite a bit of it as well. But really strong album. My favourite tracks from The Atlantic would be A Silent Arc, All I Have, and Currents too. I love from The Atlantic. So that's my number 9 choice, The Atlantic. Maybe reason it's relatively low at number 9 is just that for me it goes on a little bit long, but that is the only reason I could find for even number 9 here, because these are all now just great albums. Number 8, I've chosen The Inner Circle. So one of their older albums, one that would be deemed a classic by quite a few people, I suspect. This is an interesting, quite deep album, very dark themes going on for this album. And I do like it. I mean, I like A Touch of Blessing a lot, Harmless Wishes, The Essence of Conviction. As I say, I love all these albums from now on. And I think one thing that works incredibly well is the lyrics and the music are tied well together for lots of this album. I do think it's a really intelligent kind of concept album, The Inner Circle. But despite that, I think in the music itself, there's just a bit less for me that I like to come back to again with Evergrey. But saying that, this is where it just gets really tough. I do like The Inner Circle a lot, but I suppose it's just a touch less than the other albums to come. Now at number 7. Oh, did I say my favourite tracks from The Inner Circle? I think they would be Touch of Blessing, Harmless Wishes, and The Essence of Conviction. So now we move on to an album which comes about midway on this list. This is their debut album, and I think this is an underdog. I think this is a great album as a debut album's go. If anything lets it down a little bit, it's probably the mixing. I feel like there's a bit of an imbalance in the instruments, the guitars in particular. It doesn't all sound synced up very well. But the songs themselves, there are many great tracks on here. And it sort of surprises me a bit that it's not, it's one of these albums that has escaped the attention of lots of people. And, I'm kind of stunned by that. But maybe it is the production a bit or something, I don't know. But anyway, you've got tracks like Black and Dawn on here, Dark Discovery. Shadowed is awesome. I love that track. One of the best power ballads I've ever heard, I'm honestly saying that is not exaggerating, is For Every Tear That Falls. Stunning duet he does with his wife Karina, and it's unbelievably good. And you see a live version on YouTube as well. It's just brilliant. It's one of my favourite songs maybe of all time, For Every Tear That Falls. Unbelievable track, and a great debut album actually that I think is a bit overlooked. Number 6 in the Evergrey, in my Evergrey ranking, is another great album. Perhaps also a little bit over. I don't know actually if this one is as overlooked, but anyway, let's carry on. Solitude, Dominance, and Tragedy. Awesome artwork again, an awesome album again. Solitude Within, pretty awesome opening track with, I love the main sort of guitar theme in that one. Nosferatu's good. First half of this album's really strong actually. The second half maybe doesn't grab me quite as much, which is why it's at number 6 and not slightly higher. But many people maybe would have this one as their favourite Evergrey album, come to think of it, and I would find it hard to argue with them, because even though this is number 6, it is really exciting stuff. Did I say my favourite tracks? No, I keep forgetting that now to say my favourite tracks. I think Solitude Within, Nosferatu, and She Speaks to the Dead are my favourites from Solitude, Dominance, and Tragedy. Now we move on to number 5. So we're getting high up now. We're in the top 5. And this is a fantastic album from 2016, so not from that long ago, called The Storm Within. One of their more recent albums that I really love. I think they've got, I just like a lot of the arrangements here. It's got the epic, more recent Evergrey sounds, but really refined nicely by the time they got to this album. I think they worked out the sound brilliantly. And you got Distance, a good opening track. But I could just read out all the tracks here and say I like pretty much each and every one of them. So if I had to choose 3 favourites, probably Distance, Passing Through, and maybe The Lonely Monarch is a track I really enjoy. But there's another good couple of duets, including a duet with Thor Jansen, or 2 duets with Thor Jansen on here, or two songs which feature Thor Jansen on the lyrics as well, not on the vocals. So that's The Storm Within at number 5. We move on now to the most recent album. One I didn't review this, which now feels criminal, because this is a fantastic, considering it's their newest. You sometimes find the newest albums don't do as well in sort of bands that have been around a while's discography. But this is pretty special stuff, and it could even maybe go higher up than number 4 in future months or years. Maybe for me, it's Heartless Portrait. The Orpheum Testament is just full of great songs. I think it's got that anthemic feel to it that some of their more recent material has. It's very driving, very motivational, actually, very uplifting as an album. I personally love on here Midwinter Calls. Reawakening has a wonderful moment where it sort of switches, I think, there's a change where a guitar solo comes in. I just love it. I just love that moment. Heartless has an amazing chorus. Another brilliant album, to be honest. And I guess, I mean, why isn't it higher, you might ask? Because it is a great, I mean, I would say, if anything, the problem with it being so new and still quite recent in terms of my experiences with it means that it's hard to say it's number 1, 2, or 3 at this point. But it has that potential, I think, still. As far as, you know, particularly their recent albums go, I'm pretty confident that this is one of their best. Now, number 3 is my contrarian choice for Evergrey. And I say contrarian because I think of the 5 or 6 rankings either online or YouTubers have done for this album, this was low down in their choices. Yet for me, this album, Glorious Collision, is a gem. And I was listening to this, struggling to think actually even which songs I liked less. I mean, I liked them all pretty much. Maybe 1 or 2 tracks on here I didn't quite enjoy as much, so it's number 3. But I wasn't expecting this actually to be as high up as it is. On rediscovering this and listening to this again, I just realised how much I like it. I liked its kind of, you know, it is a very dark album, and but it's really well done, and just lots of memorable tracks. I love Leave It Behind Us, Frozen, that chorus. I like The Phantom Letters, and another track which features the vocals of his wife and The Distance, Karina England. Yeah, underrated. I mean, I almost want to do a video to talk about how underrated this album is, I think. I mean, you could say it about Evergrey generally, right, that they're a pretty underrated band over the years, but this album perhaps completely underrated to me. Now, number 2, getting towards the end of the video now. So number 2, Recreation Day. Bit of a fan favourite I've gone with here, but it's hard to argue with it being a fan favourite. It is just spectacular. I mean, I think of the title track and the moments in that with the choir arrangement. That chorus is extremely powerful. I mean, when I listen to it, it changes my mood almost with a click of the fingers like that. It's just so good. I love Your Darkest Hour, End of Your Days, probably my 2 other favourites from this album of very strong tracks. I like Blinded, I think it is a lot as well. Just uplifting, fantastic album from Evergrey, Recreation Day. It's hard to argue with this one. Would be a lot of people's number one as well. It's just my number two, because my number one is this one, In Search of Truth, from 2001, right? 2001, I think. This is a concept album based on, it deals with apparently alien abductions based on a kind of factual account, or allegedly factual, of an alien abduction victim or something like that. But this album just flows so well, and I think it's that combined with the power of each individual track as well. All the songs are very good. There's not a track I don't like on here, so that's why it made it to number one as well. It's just so incredible. One of the best kind of progressive type of albums I think I've heard. And it felt like my natural number one choice with this list in the end. The only album that was kind of challenging a bit was probably Recreation Day, but after listening to them again and again, for me, it's In Search of Truth. It's number one. Anyway, thank you all, as always, for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the Evergrey ranking. As I say, do drop your own in the comments. As for me, as always, I'll drop a like and subscribe if you like to do that as well. It always helps the channel. Otherwise, from me, take care, everybody. Have great nights. Bye for now.